We're going to be talking about emergent design versus intelligent design. Intelligent design, I guess you can say, is designing from the top down, knowing your outcome before you get it, or designing almost every single aspect of it down to the smallest interaction before to get something, right? It's almost like having we've all probably had bosses that had the strictest rules that wanted everything done a certain way. Even if your way was more efficient, they didn't want you to do it that way because they wanted it done a specific way. And not even for a specific reason. There's some times where it's done this way for a specific reason. But no, I'm talking they want it down to a specific thing. And you just keep thinking in your head, what if there was a way for me to do this, but more efficiently, it would get done faster and I could go do something else, right? And they're just stuck on doing it this specific way, right? And that's because those specific ways scale, or in their mind they scale, when I'm not even sure. We need to test that again to see if it's actually true. I know things can get sloppy sometimes, but what if this is what I'm trying to basically say is, what if there was a way to design a system that gave people way more freedom, right? And it's not even about people, right? It can be atoms, it can be cells, it can be AI agents, but give them freedom to act, but you need to follow these local rules, right? So it's the difference between, I guess you can say, positive freedom and negative freedom. And I'm almost intertwining philosophy, science, economics all in one in this conversation. So you'll see a lot of different descriptions here. And when you have someone that wants to basically be a totalitarian, they want to control the totality of an entire thing instead of just wanting a specific outcome, right? And when you start thinking of the specific outcome, you make actually the system far more stable by focusing on the outcome instead of the totality of it, right? It's like how you paint my walls versus I want my walls painted all black, right? I want my all walls to be black. And you take a paintbrush, I want you to do it with a paintbrush, not a roller. And it's like, do you care? Like, why do you want a roller? Why do you want a paintbrush? Oh, it looks better. It's like, well, can you explain to me why you think it looks better? It's going to cost you more. And it's like, no, I want it to cost the same, but I want you to use a paintbrush. And it's like, I cost by the hour, man. And it's like, you end up in this weird situation. It's like, if there's a reason, then do it that way, right? But if there's no reason, why can't I do that, right? And like I said, we worked for jobs that are like that sometimes. And sometimes it's like, what happens if you do let people run free and do what you want? You end up probably with happier employees that are more likely to stay. You probably end up with tasks that get done faster and more efficient. And you end up with a more stable, dynamic system. You lose control, but you get the same outcome, if not a better outcome, and a more emergent outcome that actually you are controlling, because you're controlling it through local rules, right, between two individuals, whether those two individuals be whatever they are, right? Whether it be, let's just say me, a marketer, I'm a media buyer. I go out and I buy Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever. Your incentives are this, Philip. These are your local rules that you need to follow. As long as you follow those rules, go hog wild, right? Okay, cool. I might be able to get you and if I'm incentivized, where it's like, oh yeah, you get paid more if you do this. Oh, I'm gonna do it, right? Like, I'm gonna figure out any way I can squeeze out as long as I follow those local rules, right? And that might actually get you more than you thought before, right? But the problem is you give away some of your freedom, right? Or not freedom, your control, right? And I feel like we've almost been obsessed with this control when it's not about the control along the way. It's about the outcome, right? It's about the stability of that system, right? And I'm nothing but a young business owner. I'm not really, running the business at a high scale, right? I have a few employees that work for me, and I've seen, I love giving them freedom, but I've also seen what happens when I don't monitor their freedom, right? If I don't monitor them. But I've also liked to think about situations where I value my freedom highly, right? I like to be able to do whatever I want, when I want, as long as I get certain things done. Right? Like, I don't really have a set time where I work, right? Right now I'm yapping and it's 5:20 p.m. I worked all morning. I'm done working. I got all my stuff done. That's a great way to live. I like living that way. You may not. You may want a rigid structure because you may not do well in that environment. So, emergent design versus intelligent design is basically the difference between those two things, where you're designing a system that gets you an outcome versus and then letting things go hog wild in that system, right? And you'll see things fizzle out and burn out, right? So if you look for feedback loops, you're like, okay, if I let them do this, that doesn't work out. So we got to nix that, right? If we let them do this, that works out really well. So let's keep doing that. And that feedback loop, right, actually improves the system, right? And over time, you'll get better and better, right? And you'll end up forming a few attractors, right? And attractors are basically pits. You can see them as pits that capture things. So let's just say, best analogy is like there's a smooth ground, pour a bunch of water on it. You'll find out that there's a bunch of pits in there that are attractors. There could have been any way that water could have collected because it was perfectly smooth, but then you realize it wasn't quite smooth. There was a few things that actually work better than others. Those are attractors. So if you run a business a certain way, you're like, oh, well, if I incentivize them to do this, this, and this, it actually works better. So then those attractors form and those become stable with time. And in these things, you end up with anything, right? So you basically could find out that, oh, look, there's a way that you run a sales team that is actually super lucrative, right? Where I was talking to a friend, he's led a couple sales teams, and he's like, oh yeah, like it's probably best that you don't give them a base pay. If they're incentivized to do this commission only, as long as the product sells super well, right? If you know your product sells super well, it's actually best if you don't have base pay, right? But if it has a super long decision time where it takes 3 months to make a decision, you got to give them some type of base pay because they're going to be waiting 3 months between decisions, right? Or if it takes a year, right? But if it's like a nothing sales day, it's like that's why car salesmen, they don't really get much of a base pay, right? And they have to pay against it actually because car decisions happen same day, right? And so those are the difference, but it's like those seem like attractors, right? Whereas like there seem like a million ways you could have done it. Maybe you can give them $1,000 a month and then give them 15%, or maybe another way of like, oh, maybe $500 and maybe 5%, and well, all these different ways that you could have done it. And these two seem to be either none or a lot, right? A huge base pay of like $250,000, $300,000 a year plus commissions, like, working for like Salesforce or something crazy like that. Or like zero pay and it's all commissions working at like, working as a real estate agent or like a car salesman, right? And it seems like it depends based on the rules of the environment. Those are the two attractors that formed. And out of this, you get a higher level order that appears, right? Where you get these sales teams that act a certain way, and you get these sales teams in software that act a certain way. And they didn't plan to act that way. It's just the way the market decided, right? And you can see the same thing with our bodies and the cells and the way that they interact, right? It's like, oh yeah, my arm muscles probably didn't know that it made sense to do what they're doing, but now it makes sense that they do it, so they do it, right? And the way that we speak our language, it's like, oh yeah, certain things just probably caught on because it was better for certain situations, right? Like, I heard like, there's a language, I think it's pygmy, something like that, where it's like a hyper easy way to read English. And that's what most of the world reads when they read English. Didn't even know about it, but because English is my first and only language. And it's like, okay, I can see that becoming English, right? For the most of the world, because if English is the global language, right? And that's what I mean by like, and then the interesting thing about emergence is there's weak and there's strong emergence, right? Where weak emergence is surprising but explainable, right? Where it's like a flocking of birds. Why do birds form that triangle where the lead flies here and in the wings they fly out and they wide? It's the best way to see predators the whole time, or food the whole time, right? Or you can think of like traffic jams, where it's like that's not really a great emergent thing, but you can see the patterns of traffic and why they form, right? Where like, for example, traffic in Atlanta, people are like, why is it so bad? It's like, well, because no one really lives in the city. Everyone lives outside or closer to the 285 loop, and then commutes inwards, and they leave at the same time. If more people lived in the city, maybe we could have denser, MARTA and things like that, the subway system here, and buses. If we did that, then we probably could have these things. And then like even like just crystal lattices, where it's just like weak crystal lattices, not super complex ones like salt and sugar, right? That can break super easily. But then you have really strong emergence where you have life regulating chemistry, like, your cells wanting glycogen or I'm not really good at this biology stuff, but that type of things, right? Mind regulating brain, where your brain holds your mind. Your mind exists within your brain, but it's not in your brain, if that makes sense. It's an emergent phenomenon from it, right? And even just social norms, where certain things in your environment made you do certain things. It emerged out of your environment and out of your situation. Your experiential experience led to you being this way, these social norms, right? And it's not like they forced you to be like that the first time. It's that it ended up being that way, right? So yeah, that's kind of like the difference between intelligent design and emergent creation. Thanks for watching the video. Peace, y'all.